It is Wednesday, the 31st of March 2021, and it's new t-shirt time. To paraphrase Alexei Sayle from back in the day, a low mark got a new t-shirt. Old school reference for those who know, those who remember. Check this out. All about George Orwell wrote 1984 in 1948. A few months later, in January 1950, he died. Tuberculosis, apparently, like you do. And 1984 was supposed to be a novel and not an instruction manual to the world's psychopathic leaders. Big thanks to Sam at Rebel Woman Art for this t-shirt. There's many more designs there. I'll put the link in the show notes below. I want to thank everyone for the kind messages that have poured in since the last video as well. A lot of people have wondered why I've been offline for a few days. The only reason for that is that I received another YouTube channel strike last week for posting my interview with Michael O'Byrne regarding the private criminal prosecutions that he's bringing against Hancock, Whitty, Ferguson and Vallance. It seems that interview ruffled a few feathers. It seems that certain parties were upset that it was getting put out there, and so it earned me a YouTube channel strike, meaning I couldn't post for a full week. So again, I take that as confirmation that we're on the right track. I take it as a badge of honour, and I take it as a hopeful sign that things might well progress in that area. I'm looking to get an update with Michael the Bernician in the coming days to find out how that case is progressing. In the meantime, you can still watch that interview and share it if you wish with interested people. It's on my Bitchute, so it remains on that channel. So when I do go silent for a week or more on YouTube, it's almost certainly because I've earned a channel strike and I'm simply unable to upload anything. I'm also in the midst of a 30-day ban from Facebook at the moment for the crime of telling the truth. So again, that's the only reason why I'm not posting on Facebook. So if I go silent on that platform, you can be assured that this is why it is. So it seems getting banned from these platforms is a way of life for those of us doing this kind of work, and we really do just have to take it as confirmation that we're really making an impact, and we're putting out information that the powers that be would prefer didn't get out there. So we just have to keep doing it. And I don't know what these people think we're going to do when they give us a channel ban and take down a video. Do they really think we're just going to say, oh well, we're beat, I'm going to throw in the towel, I'm done? It only makes us even more determined, even more tenacious, even more persistent in what we want to do. We just double down on our efforts, and in many ways it's a good thing. I thank them for doing it because it makes us work even harder to get our message out. We will not be silenced. We'll just find new ways of getting this information out there. So the last video that I did, I was obviously a bit pissed off, and I expressed myself in terms of how I was feeling, and a few people were kind of concerned at the dark space that I was in at the time. I bounced to and fro from these kind of places day by day, to be honest, like many others. And I received many messages from people of concern, just asking if I was okay. So I want to thank everyone for, their thoughts along those lines and all the correspondence that I received. And really reflecting on that whole thing made me realise what my true role seems to be in all of this. I mean, I've realised this for some time, but there are many other outlets, platforms that are putting out information, fact-based information about what's going on in the world. So it's facts, figures, logic, names, dates, places, that kind of thing. And they're doing a great job of it. Unfortunately, due to the times in which we live, a lot of that material is very dark and it can really bring you down. It's quite devastating and depressing. And it's not somewhere I want to be, and there's no value for me in completely absorbing myself in that kind of information. So like I say, there are others that are doing a great job of putting this sort of data out there, and I'm very grateful that they do, but I'm happy to leave them to it. And it seems that the role that I've kind of stumbled into, which was never the plan, but it's just worked out that way, so maybe the universe has caused this to happen, is that I've become a kind of counsellor, a kind of therapist to others who are going through this shit show. We're all in it together. And people write to me all the time and thank me for my videos due to the fact that they express exactly how they are feeling, the mind state, the spiritual state that they're in. themselves as a result of what we're all having to live through. And people tell me that I express these thoughts articulately and eloquently, and I just say what's on their minds, and it helps them to know that other people are feeling that way, and they find it very cathartic to have it, expressed in that way. So that seems to be the role that I've stumbled into. I never would have imagined that I'd be serving as any kind of therapist or counsellor if you told me even a year ago. But here we are. We live in strange times in 2021, and things that we previously thought to be impossible or highly improbable are coming true every day. On that note, I do want to read out a couple of emails that I've received, and again, an old school reference. I'm kind of feeling like Barry Took on Points of View from the Beast's Brainwashing Corporation a few decades ago. Who remembers Points of View? That's another reference for people of my generation in the UK. But I think there's a lot of value in reading out the odd email that I get, because in the same way that I seem to be able to articulate what's on people's minds, I also get emails that make me think, wow, this person is seeing things exactly the same way that I do, and they're expressing my very thoughts and my very reflections on things. So I'll read a couple out here. I won't include the names. I'll just leave these anonymous. But I've got a great one here from a person the other day who stated, I think a lot of us are moving through the grief cycle, which isn't a linear process. We move through various stages and then back again multiple times. Anger, bargaining, helplessness, struggling to find meaning, back to anger again. We are struggling with so many losses, not least the loss of autonomy, personal agency, power and control, and the loss of a certain and predictable future. Then there's the feeling of complete rage, been there last week, you may have noticed, at the people who are doing this to us, and also towards those who are so asleep they're pulling us further into the abyss. It does sometimes seem so hopeless. I've found it helps me to have scamdemic-free days. I can't do it for long because of the enormity of the battle and the need to keep on top of it to maintain some element of control. But it helps me just to have a day or two a week where I just focus on trying to salvage simple joys in life and doing things that give me a glimmer of hope, however small. Having some time to breathe and to reset my brain helps me top up my resilience, because living in a constant state of stress is exhausting, and the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol take their toll on the body too. So I think that's some great advice, having a scamdemic free day or a couple each week where you just do things like getting out into nature. The spring weather is here. It's been beautiful and warm this week. It's great to be outside, and it really makes a difference just to get out there in nature, take a walk, and forget all this stuff for a short while. Like the writer of that email says, it will be there when you come back to it. It ain't going anywhere. You can jump back in the game and do what needs to be done once you've taken care of yourself for a little bit. So some great advice there. Another email from a friend of mine that I'll read out as well, because he makes some great points. We have discussed the seemingly supernatural manner by which this scamdemic was pulled off, pre-programmed by design and perfectly scripted, with complete absurdities and so many ridiculous anomalies that to us are self-evident. Is it actually possible that a few evil men in high places pulled all the right strings to create this dystopian nightmare, without the opposite being at play simultaneously? A simulation, perhaps, a quantum collusion. Only the suffering as a consequence is so very real. There has to be a silver lining to this bullshit. The karmic effect of each and every one of us is in question here. We know to do no harm. They do not. Every word, action and deed recorded for posterity on the Akashic records waiting to happen. Our reactive minds are being tested to the max here. Laughing at the absurdity is incredibly difficult, because we are compassionate, caring human beings who feel the pain of others, especially the young and the old, who are most affected by the lies. So he's talking about the difference between us, regular humans, who have all our capacities intact. We have the empathy, we have the compassion, we have the principle of care within us. We know innately, inherently, the difference between right and wrong action, ways in which we should be behaving and ways which are an affront to creation, to God, to the universe. Whereas those that we're up against, the psychopaths, don't have these capacities. They lack the empathy, they lack the compassion, they lack the care for thought of the consequences of their actions. They do believe in karma. This is why they do things like placing the truth in plain sight and telling us what they intend to do in advance, because in their sick, twisted way, they're trying to cheat the effects of the karmic consequence of their actions. And they try to manipulate things to put the onus on us, to try and trick and coerce us into giving our consent to what they're doing. That's where things like the birth certificate fraud come in, and the whole straw man situation that we live in maritime admiralty law. But because they're psychopaths, they aren't bound by a nagging conscience the way the rest of us are, which is what leaves them free to do so much harm to us. But I truly believe that their day of reckoning is coming. I truly believe that they're not going to win this one. I have my up days, I have my down days. On a down day, I might be telling you differently. But when I'm looking at things from a balanced, grounded perspective, I really feel there's no way they're going to win this one long term. They've showed their hand. The genie is out of the bottle, the cat is out of the bag, whichever analogy you want to use, and it ain't going back, because they've made it so obvious what they are, what they represent, and what their plan is. They're even telling us the Great Reset, They're being very open about this in their own documentation. So it has to be only a matter of time before they fail, because they've shown their hand in a way that never used to be the case. In an effort to try and speed up that process, because you may have noticed I'm not renowned for my patience, never have been, but I've produced a new resource leaflet. Now, I've done 3 other versions of this in months past, and people who watch these videos have been very helpful in taking a quantity of these leaflets and putting them out in their own local areas. So I need more of that now. I don't have the leaflets back from the printer yet. They're due any day now. I had hoped to be able to show you it, but they're probably going to arrive tomorrow. And these leaflets concentrate on the V word, the V word agenda. It's clear that this is where things were always intended to go. This was always the end goal, to roll out the V word and to coerce people into taking it by making life very difficult for those who don't. This is where V passports and this kind of thing come in, which are unworkable. They're not going to be able to be practically applied in the long term, because the opposition is there already. But like I say, we need to speed up the process, and we need to get more normies on side. So these leaflets aren't intended to go out to existing truthers, existing awake and aware people. They're for normies who are sitting on the fence, who might just be swayed to embrace truth in this matter and reject all the lies and the deceptions of the mainstream. Obviously, some normies are beyond all hope and redemption. They won't wake up in this lifetime, no matter what you put in front of them. So we need to concentrate on the ones who do show some potential to be able to be swayed. So the big difference between these leaflets and the previous ones that I've put out, apart from the fact that they focus on the V-word agenda and they use mainstream sources, so nobody can accuse me or anyone else of putting out conspiracy stuff, because they're all drawn from mainstream sources. It's facts, it's data, it's information, documentation that is out there that shows that taking one of these Vs is really not the best idea for your human health. And long term, we face some very serious consequences to this crazy agenda being rolled out as it is. As I say, this was always the plan. So the thing about these leaflets is, with previous ones, I had really long-ass URLs that went on forever. And for someone to go to that online resource, they would have had to have personally typed out that address. And that would have put a lot of people off, because that's a pain in the arse to have to do that. So I've been able to, with the help of an assistant, Big shout to Scott for his input in this. I've been able to create QR codes for each of these URLs. So you have the description of what the link involves, and then anyone that's got a smartphone, never used one myself, still on this, can scan the QR code simply. So if you're giving this leaflet to somebody in the street and they've got their smartphone on them, they can scan the QR code right there and then and have that site come up on their phone ready for reference. So I think this is really going to encourage people to actually look at these things because they don't now have to type out these URLs. So as I say, I'm getting a huge quantity of these leaflets. I've ordered masses. And there's going to be loads available for anyone who can assist in the process of getting them out there. So there's a lot of protest events, there's a lot of rallies that are going to be happening in the coming weeks as the weather improves. People are going to be out there in the streets, in their hordes, opposing this dystopian bullshit that we're all still living under. So it's a great opportunity to get large quantities of these leaflets out there into the hands of people that need to see them. So if anyone can assist in that process, the email address is down below, and if you would be kind enough to put £4 into my PayPal, that's what I'm asking to cover the postage costs. So I've personally covered the cost of getting these things printed. To mail them out, a quantity is going to cost about £4 within the UK. So if anyone that could help is able to put £4 into the PayPal, that at least ensures that I'm covering my costs and not going into a huge loss myself. So thanks in advance to everyone for their assistance on that front. Upcoming shows, I've just recorded one with Sean McCann for his Waking the Dead podcast. And this is us doing a thorough dissection of the movie Rosemary's Baby, Roman Polanski's film from 1968, which tells us so much about the trauma-based mind control and the satanic ritual abuse that is present in all levels of society. And Polanski was putting this into his movie well over 50 years ago. So Sean and myself are going into fine forensic detail in taking apart that movie, looking at the symbolism, looking at the ideas and the themes that were being conveyed. So watch out for that one. Now that I can post on my channel again, I'll put that up sooner rather than later. I'm going to be chatting to Dolores Carhill next week about her World Freedom Alliance project. Watch out for that one. And I'm also hoping to get Rainer Fulmich on the show, the lawyer who's assembled a team of international law experts that are going after the perpetrators of the scamdemic and holding the governments and various other supposed world leaders to account for the huge harm and damage that's been caused. So hopefully I'll be getting Rainer Fulmich on sooner rather than later as well. More immediately though, ahead of all of that, I've just recorded a show with my dude Billy Ray Valentine, who's the host of the Infinite Fringe podcast. Great show coming out of New York. Now this show is definitely going to set the cat among the pigeons, to use another metaphor, because it's going to be titled Q Is A Psy-Op. And this is me giving a platform to Billy Ray to lay out all the reasons he has to assume that the so-called Q plan and the idea that there is a white hat alliance team of good guys working behind the scenes to bring down the deep state cabal, hold evildoers and perpetrators of crimes against humanity to account, and expose all the evil and the darkness in our world for the masses to see. This is Billy Ray laying out why this whole thing has been probably the cruelest and one of the most elaborate psychological operations in the history of social engineering. And it's us, truthers, truth seekers, awake and aware types, that have been the target of this one. It has been designed to give us the impression that all this great work is going on behind the scenes, and all we have to do is sit tight, trust the plan, and it will all come together. Now, me giving a platform to him pretty much indicates that I'm throwing my cards in with this whole thing myself. I've had hope invested in the idea that this might be a valid and real thing. All along, I've sought evidence and proof that it's valid and real. I've seen a few things. I've seen a few anomalies, discrepancies, little glimmers of potential hope, but I'm still lacking the proofs and the evidence that I need as a professional researcher to any longer be able to accept that this is a real thing. The can has kept getting kicked further and further down the road in terms of the pundits that tell us big things are coming. It's coming on this date. Not that date. No, it's going to be next week. Oh, no, next month. Oh, the reason they couldn't do it on this date is because they came up against this unforeseen thing and it's delayed things. But don't worry, it's coming. Oh, yeah, they didn't expect this, so it's, delayed things a bit further. Keeps going on and on and on. I had a cut-off point. My cut-off point was the 20th of March. Beyond that, I said to myself a while back, I'll no longer be able to accept that this is a real thing. So I'm basically going along with the sentiments in this show, and listen to what he says. He's laying out some great evidence. He's going into Cambridge Analytica, this social engineering think tank out of Cambridge University that specialises in creating psychological operations like this. And it's pretty damning and devastating when you listen to what Billy Ray is laying out there. I know it's going to be a controversial show. I know it's going to divide opinion. I know a lot of people are going to have some issues with what he says in the show, but it is what it is. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm hoping that in some unexplained, bizarre way that I don't quite fully comprehend, I might actually be preempting the forces of the universe to cause something to happen, to show me how I've been so foolish to have given up on this, to restore my faith. It's got to be something that stands and acts as very real proof. I know a lot of people right now are all caught up with this evergreen tanker, this ship that's stranded in the Suez Canal. And people are saying there's all kinds of symbolism in that event to indicate that it's a white hat Q controlled agenda. I'm still waiting for proof of that to be the case. That ship has been stuck there for a few days as I record this, and still nothing has come through to indicate that it could be an event of that nature. I'm ready for it. Any day. I'm ready to admit that I should have had more faith. I should have had more patience. I should have stuck with the plan. I want to have to do a show where I have to state that. I look forward to it. And yet, in the meantime, I and everyone else am still waiting for any kind of proof that this so-called Q plan is real. I've come around to accepting that this has been a massive psy-op designed to cause all of us to stand down and not put in the effort that we would have done otherwise. And I like to think that's not the case. I like to think that I and so many others have kept all our efforts and our input stepped up every bit as much as we would if there was no so-called plan there. We haven't flagged at all in that. We've done everything in our power to do and will continue for as long as it's necessary. But the idea behind the psy-op was to get people to stand down and sit back and say, we don't have to do anything, others have got this, we can just watch from the sidelines. So that show will be going out very soon. As I say, now that I can upload again, I'll be putting it on the YouTube, and I'll be awaiting a barrage of correspondence as a result, no doubt. The only other thing I wanted to mention was that, if you'll excuse a bit of a personal ad here, prior to the scamdemic, some people may know that I worked as a private hire driver. So I was taking business folk, for the most part, to and from airports, mainly Heathrow Airport. I lost that job when the scamdemic hit because obviously people weren't travelling, all the flights were grounded and stuff. So I've not been doing that for a while. But I just wanted to put it out there that this service from me is still available for anyone that might be in need of transport for a long journey. So I'm not talking about a little journey from the post office to the bank. I'm talking about lengthy journeys of 1, 2, 3 hours or more, where somebody needs to get from point A to point B. Now, I think there's probably a market out there among truthers, among awake and aware types who don't want any of the COVID bullshit. They don't want to travel by public transport because they don't want to have to wear a mask. They don't want all the bullshit regulations that come with it. And so they might be looking for a transport service where you don't have to do any of that. So I just wanted to put it out there that this is available, and I am able to take people from point A to point B. I've got a pretty good car in pretty good condition, and you would get some good conversation as part of the service as well. No masks, no bullshit. None of that. So if anyone is ever in need of that kind of service, hit me up on the email that's included in the show notes below, and maybe we can arrange something, a sort of truth taxi service, if you like. Just wanted to put that out there. I'm going to finish on another email because I think this is a very useful note to end on. And this one comes from Stephen Wybrow out there in Austria. You might remember I did a show with him a few weeks back talking about the situation in Austria and how there's a lot of pushback to the tyranny. There's a lot of people standing up to the dystopianism coming from the government. Devastatingly, I heard that Austria was just put into another lockdown a few days ago, and this is a pretty harsh one involving a 6 p.m. curfew, apparently, and masks in the street as well as in public buildings. But Steve Wybrow, in the face of all of this, is remaining persistent and remaining resistant. And so this is the email that he sent to me, and I think this is a pretty good note to end this message on. He says, "As I said on your show, how can you know that an awakening is happening? Because of the quickening of the agenda. Because of them becoming ever more fascistic in their approach, which is exactly the point where they make mistake after mistake after mistake. Never interrupt while your enemy is making mistakes. I know it's maddening, but the tide has turned, and the human awareness in alignment with the natural order is breaking through right now. We are all doing all we can, so rest assured we will succeed." That's a pretty good note to end on, and I don't really have any words to add, apart from I'll see you next time.